All right, before I start this video, I would like to explain I am not anti-technology. I am not anti anything that I was talking about on here. What I am is practical. Cost of certain things to supposedly make you more money sometimes isn't exactly advertised quite right. When you save on one side, does it save you all the way through, or is it just saving you on the, at the beginning? At the end is where it really counts. Everything at the beginning that costs you is determined by your end result. So when you go through this video and you're cursing at me and telling me I'm a moron, just think about it. What is the profitability of your machine? How much have you put into it, and how much are you going to get back on that machine with all your little updates, bells and whistles and things like that? So with that, let the pissing off begin. Alrighty then, I'm back at this corn planter, and I read all my comments just so everybody out there that comments knows. If you didn't know, you know now. I read all my comments. Now, there was one comment, actually two comments from the same dude on these down pressure springs. So, there are other companies that produce, I don't know if John Deere does or not, because I'm not interested in buying a brand new corn planter or anything even remotely new because of the price tag. I can take something like this and turn it into less than what a 4-row corn planter would cost me brand new. Let me crawl underneath here. Now, I get criticized all the time now, and it's okay. Due to, not due to, but contrary to beliefs from my viewers, that I actually give a damn what the negative comments say. I really don't care about your negative comments. Sometimes I feel that they're so ignorant that they need to be addressed, and this isn't one of them. What this is I got criticized for putting these on. The guy said, hey, I had those on my corn planter, and I took them off because they were junk. I didn't like them at all. I wasn't happy with them. Okay, so now I'm left to wonder, why didn't you like them? Was it that the springs weren't tough enough? Was it that it put too much pressure on your gauge wheels? What was it? And that's what I'm saying about your comment. I'd love to hear the remainder of the comment, like, I didn't like those down pressure springs because, well, what's the because? Why didn't you? Was it because it's just basic standard equipment on a John Deere corn planter? Even to this day, you don't have to get the pneumatic down pressure or the hydraulic down pressure. My problem with anything, I shouldn't say my problem with anything. My problem with the modern way of doing, putting down pressure on these row units is not that they don't work. It's the complications of it, the complexity of it. Get my words right. They become so complex that you're running wires, you're running hoses, you're running fittings. And look at this corn planter. This is a 30-year-old, 31 season corn planter to the best of my knowledge. And as you go down the frame rails, what do you see other than my tools? But you see hoses, you see lines, you see wires, and that's not, there's the hoses and the wires that go to each row unit, and there's 24 of them. So as you get to the end, of course, you ultimately end up with only a wire and a hose to there, but then you've got the stuff that goes through the frame rails and all that nonsense that goes through there. This is a 30-year-old machine, 31-year-old machine, and in its 31 years, It has, you know, it has a lot of electronic stuff on it. To my liking, I like a very simple corn planter. I don't like all the electronics. I'm not knocking the electronics. I am not saying I would never get those electronics. It's just, will those electronics pay off? I hear guys say, oh, you'll be amazed at all the seed you save. Okay. Well, a bag of seed is what, 230 bucks, 235, $240 for a fully stacked variety. Is that what it is? You know, so in my 1,200 acres that I'm going to plant, I'll probably save 10 bags. $2,400 in seed. Well, okay, cool. $2,400 in seed. Well, that's not entirely true. Out of that $2,400 in seed, of course, what they're talking about is crossing rows. So when I come up to a row with a 24-row corn planter, without those individual shutoffs, whether they're air clutches. They used to have air clutches. Now that's just the electronic. Well, I think they probably still do have the air clutches. But now they're electronic, do away with the transmission, and they're little electric motors that cost like stupid money to put on. I think they're a couple $1,000s a row. Don't quote me. Don't quote me on the price because I didn't price them. I've heard from other people that it would be really expensive to convert one of these corn planters over to that. So I've got 12 rows, and I can only shut off one bank at a time. You know, one bank. I can shut 12 rows off here, or I can shut 12 rows off over there. Well, when I come to point rows, you know, point rows where they kind of intersect, if my fingers were if the frame rail there was that and was a row, and then this is how I came across, I would have to plant across a dozen rows to finish up the point rows efficiently, and then I would have all these crossed rows. Okay, I get it. The seed you're putting down, but those seeds that you put down are not mute. They don't not produce something. And just say $2,500 worth of seed corn, or say $2,500 worth of seed corn that I would have saved. Am I going to lose my $2,500? I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so, because I know that even with the 12 row, and I would cover, say, 6 point rows before I raised the planter up and I come across a few rows, the corn, there's more corn in those rows. Even if it's an extra 50 bushels to the acre in those point rows from the crossed rows, it's not going to save me $2,500 in seed every year. It might actually cost me money for those things, because those corn stalks that are there, I know for a fact, I know people that have yield monitors in their combines. I do not have one, but I know guys that have yield monitors in their combine, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll be running, you know, 180 corn and it'll go to 230 in those point rows. Like, really, that much? Oh yeah, absolutely. And well, that's 50 bushels. That's 50 bushels more in those point rows from crossing those rows. Well, you take 50 bushels, you do 2 acres at the extra 50 bushels, you've got an extra 100 bushels in your pot. There's $700, right? So if you do 1,000 acres, and in those point rows you may have, say, 50 acres of point rows. Here in the East Coast you definitely would. Say there's 50 acres, so that's 2,500 bushel, right? Yeah, 2,500 bushels at 50 bushels to the acre. How much did you lose? You didn't lose anything. You didn't lose anything at all. As a matter of fact, you gained on that. So now you have the extra complexity of those units. You have each electric motor, and I'm sure there's guys that are just screaming at me saying, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, just do the math, you know, just do the math. Let's put it this way. Even if it was an extra 25 bushels in those point rows and you had 50 acres of point rows, you got 50 acres
25. 2 times 5 is, yeah, 2 times 5 is 10. You got 100 and, 100 and, just say 100 and 1,200 bushels. An extra 1,200 bushels. Corn right now is over $6. 12, there's $6,000. You're not saving any money in seed. Yes, your field looks better. It looks better, I'll give you that. And if aesthetics is worth that extra money that you're going to put into your, actually at a loss. So now you've got another, it just adds complexity to your corn planter. And here comes my aunt and my son. Okay, so my interruption has left. All right, so as far as complexity in a corn planter, if you want to make your corn planter as complex as you want, go ahead and do it. Just don't come on and tell everybody how much money you're actually saving without pushing a pencil across a piece of paper. I mean, you could get 15 bushel increases in those point rows, and it would not cost you anything just to leave these things like this. These are basic, reliable. These sprockets on here are more than likely every bit of 30 years old, just like the rest of this corn planter and the row units. Transmissions work, but I will tell you, I have the added shutoffs. These will shut 6 rows off, these will shut 6 rows off, so on and so forth. So I have control over a bank of 6 rows at a time. So when I do come into those point rows, I'll probably only cross, 4 rows and then throw one bank off. And then, then fine. I get to the next 4 rows or 6 rows and I shut that bank off. And then I get to the next 6 rows, I shut that bank off. And you know what? That's great. That's fine. I'm not covering through the whole, those whole areas there. Now, if you're at the higher populations, like 40,000 plant population, you probably will lose yield in those areas. But I know guys, they're planting 30,000 plant population, and they're seeing increases of about 50 bushel yields in those point rows. So they're not losing anything. Now I'm sure everybody's going to jump on their keyboard and start yelling and screaming that I don't know anything. But you know what? I actually talk to people. I talk to people, and those people tell me, hey, this is what I've seen. This is what happens. A lot of these gizmos and gadgets and fads and electronic updates and upgrades that people put on their corn planters, yeah, they're nice, but are they really, really necessary? You're still getting the same price for your corn as I would if I was running my 12 row or if I'm running this 24 row. You are not getting any more money for your crop than I am. And maybe you just think that aesthetics and if it's pleasing to the eyes or pleasing to the neighbor's eyes that you're actually out there with brand new equipment, and there are farmers that need brand new equipment. They really do. I'm not one of them. I'm capable of completely tearing these things down, rebuilding them, seeing a problem, repairing the problem, and going to work and having a great time. Okay, interrupted again, but that's fine. Now, on this 30-year-old corn planter, yes, I still have the welded steel row unit. Those welded steel row units have been on this corn planter for 30 years. I know there's one. This one is a replacement one, but I think it was replaced a while ago. You can see that it was replaced. It's got the tag on it, and it is got the bolt-in ones with the adjustable. They're the bolt-in ones. They're not the shaft style like the originals. So the new corn planters have a cast or forged row unit and forged arms. And I said this in another video. I don't know if it ever made it online, if I got it edited out or not. I have never seen one of these break. Never. Never. I planted a lot of acres with a 4-row corn planter, and a 4-row corn planter sees way more abuse than a 24-row corn planter in a season. I've never seen one of these break. These wear out. The bushings, or those bushings that are there, wear out. But this is the best repair I've seen. That is it. Those bearing kits, you just weld them on and life is good. I've got one over here cooling. It's about ready to be painted. It's actually cold now. I welded it up, and honestly, I'm very pleased. Yeah, I'm very pleased with the way that works. There's John Deere still, even unless you order them with a different type of a closing wheel. I would take those off. I'm taking those off. I'm going to put either furrow cruisers or I'm going to put farm shops on. I haven't ordered them yet. I'm waiting. I tell you what, there's a lot of horse shit that goes on in your life, you know, and when you're marketing things that, well, whatever. We won't even get into that, but I got to be able to pay for those things because I'm trying not to borrow any money, and I like to pay for my stuff without borrowing any more than I have to. I'm going to put those spiked closing wheels on there because they will do a great job. Yeah, so there's all kinds of gimmicks and gadgets and gizmos, and you can put a lot of money into a corn planter, and your corn crop isn't going to be much better, if any better, than what I'm going to get out of mine. It really boils down to timing, fertility, and care, crop care, whether you have good weed control or not, whether you have a good crop. If you don't have those things, you're destined to fail. If you consistently put your crop in late, you're going to have those yield sufferings. It has no bearing on how much money you spend on your corn planter or your tractor or any of that stuff. Yes, you have to keep these things in good shape. Would I prefer a center fill system on a corn planter? Yes. I think that it would be way better to have the center fill, that you can buy bulk boxes, save a few dollars on your seed and that's money. Money saved is money. Money not spent is money saved. You can lose money spending it if you don't have, if you spend it on something that isn't going to give you the return. So, anyways, if you're going to comment on this, please be respectful. Comment in full detail, not just half-assed. Oh, I hated mine. Well, there's a lot of things in life that I dislike as well. I don't really hate anything, you know? I mean, I don't hate anything. I see what's valuable, and I see what's nonsense, and I see what's invaluable. And I may have bought this behemoth corn planter, and because the wheels are all the way in the back, I may have to use my 12-row in certain fields, which I'm fully prepared to do. Yeah, but I like this corn planter. I like working on it. It's easy to work on. Whoever owned it before painted these boxes, so if you're local and you see this thing out here, it is not brand new. It's 31 years old. It's 31 years old. I've got to put these little shims where I keep my eye on them. I've got a lot of these. Yeah, the discs and all, my dad says you should sell those. There's nothing wrong with them. I'm like, well, I don't have to sell them. I'm going to probably keep them, and I can use them on this if there's a failure. If there's a failure, I'll just put them back on this. And the difference between these and those is these have the heavy duty hub. They're made in the United States. These have the light duty hub, and the thickness of these are only 3 millimeter, and those are 3.5. So you can feel the difference in that blade. And my dad was like, why are you even changing those out? They look like they're new. And I said, well, I'm changing them out because I got stonier ground than they have out in Missouri where I bought this. And those stones are really hard on disc openers. So if you got the heavier disc opener with the heavier hub and the heavier bearing, it's going to last longer, and it's just going to last longer. It's going to be around longer. It's going to take the abuse, and life will be good. So I think this video is kind of long-winded, but I think there's just some things that need to be said, and I know there's farmers out there that think I'm a jackass But that's okay. I'm a jackass to most people anyway. It's like, why did you take all those Keaton seed firmers out? There's nothing wrong with them. Why did you take those tubes out? There's nothing wrong with them. Those are actual John Deere. You put Shoop ones in. That window looks like a problem to me. You know why? Because it fills with dirt. I wouldn't have that problem because I'm not going to be planting through worked ground. I'm going to be planting through a green cover. So that's all good. My dad was looking at this corn planter. He says, you know, there's not even wear on these pins. He said, are you sure they've got the acres through it that the man said they had on them? I said, yeah, 42,000 acres. This thing is supposed to have planted 42,000 acres. Yeah, right. And I'm keeping the markers. I won't take those off. My wife says, why don't you just take those off? I said, well, I'm not going to take them off for a couple of reasons. One, if I don't get my GPS unit in time, which I will, I got to go down to see Lewis, but I got to get to my GPS unit. But if the GPS unit fails, I can just unfold the marker and go to work. Never stop. You know, at night it would be more difficult, I do believe, with the markers. I've planted with markers at night before, and it never looks as nice as what I've done planting at night with GPS, because you set the GPS up and you're planting. And you're planting accurately, and you can't tell where the row units are, you know, where one starts and the other stops. It's a 60-foot corn planter, so you set the GPS up to 60 feet in either an adaptive or a straight line, AB, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. Yeah, right, Will? Yeah. All right, so it's almost complete. Almost complete. I have all the spring sets on, down pressure springs. All the row units are done for the most part. New seed tubes, new Keaton seed firmers, all that stuff is done. Put the new shims in the gauge wheels. Closing wheels have the new bearing style bushings in them. And let me tell you something, that just made those things so much better. Of all the things that I've seen improvements on, those are by far the best for the closing wheels. Now, it's an antiquated closing wheel system, you know, by all means. It is 31 years old. It's older than that, but they used these up until recently. Honest to God, they've used them up until recently, and RK Products knocked it out of the ballpark with that idea that they came up with. They're just think tanks, you know. They come out and think up something, try it, do it, come up with the easiest way, and honestly, I like it. I mean, even with zero pressure on there, it is just firm. That's the first setting. Makes a little bit of a springy noise. So what I need to do now, obviously, is put the closing wheels on when they come. Yeah, I'm waiting. I don't have to wait, but I'm waiting. I need to get it done, actually. But I do have a project on this thing that I'm not 100% sure if I need to do it, but I'm pretty sure I do. So before I really get into it, this hitch, I don't think it lifts up high enough. Not to my liking. So I backed this thing in here with the 6210R, and I put basically about 10 inches of blocks underneath it. So here it is at 10 inches, of blocked up 10 inches at the front of the machine. Of course, the lift arms will come up another probably 2 feet, foot and a half, 18 inches, 2 feet, which will then, obviously, this will come up another 2 feet. Not 2 feet, or yeah, 18 inches. So that'll raise up another 18 inches, right? And the back here, these are going to raise up another, there's another cylinder there, so that's going to raise that up. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent some of the high centering, but I'm not too thrilled with it. Honestly, I'm not thrilled with it at all. I think that should, these wheels, these row units should be every bit off the ground as what those are back there. They're not going to be. So I was thinking, you know, I'm a wonderful thinker, right? I think a lot. I was thinking that I should probably come up with a way to actually drop this pin down another 6 or 8 inches. If I could get another 8 inches of drop on that, the problem is it going to weaken it somewhere? You know, that sort of a thing. I don't know. I'm gonna get the tractor I'm gonna use on this thing. I'm gonna air up the tires, and I'm gonna go see. Getting in and out of some of these fields with little dips and ditches in them could be tricky without enough height at the front of this thing. You don't want this thing to gouge in. Now at the back, you know, it's going to lift up higher. So I don't know. We're going to find out. And that'll be really the next step, is to get all the boxes on, get all the, what do I need to do to those boxes? Teresa told me I needed to do something to those boxes before we did anything. What the hell did she say? I forget. Well, it doesn't much matter. I'm going to get all these boxes on. I'm going to put all the discs in, put all the boxes on. Then I'm going to get those closing wheels, and we should be pretty well ready to plant, other than the computer controller for that unit there, $350 for that. There's a few things on the what do you call it, the marker arms. I'm going to do some work on them. Just tightening them up. There's a bent piece of iron there, a bent piece of iron there. Back here, I'll probably just use the MIG welder because it's easy to get around with, but I'm going to cut pieces of steel here and brace it there, and on the back side there's plenty of room there. So I'll do that. I'm going to make that so that that's strong. I want it to be very strong. I don't want it to be a problem. Did fix these. There was a was missing a bushing, and I had to, all the bushings in this were actually pretty good. There was really no issues with them. I think there's fairly tight. I wish they were a little bit tighter, but the only way that I'm going to get these any tighter is to actually replace the parallel arms on the top and the bottom. Is that a terrible thing to do? No, but it's expensive. And this year, I just want to get through the year. They'll work just fine. Trust me, they'll work just fine. And because it is now a no-till drill, it is a no-till drill, or corn planter, I'm sure there's some people that are going to say, hey, why don't you have row sweeps, or why don't you have a no-till coulter on the front, or both, because they do make both. Well, the one thing that I do know, and worked really well on the 7000, and research in planting green in no-till. You can no-till, and a no-till coulter would be fine if you were starting with a clean slate. We're not starting with a clean slate. We're cutting through green material, and cutting through old residue as well. So if you have a no-till coulter on there, it is going to take down pressure from the openers, and you want all the pressure on the openers instead of transferring it from the front, or taking away from the openers to the front coulter that I'm not going to have on there. Yeah, that's just really the way it's going to be with this. The seed slot will be crumbled by the closing wheels, and that'll be good. But I got a lot of rye and wheat and hay crop that's got to be basically cut through. And last year with the 7000 corn planter, it cut right through it. I had no problems with cutting through. I have nothing but row cleaners on those, but those row cleaners were Martin row cleaners, and they were up out of the way. They did not touch the ground, and I still had wrapping issues. They would wrap even without down pressure or any, not even touching the ground. They would just wrap. So with them wrapping like that, I'm like, wrapping, it caused me time off the tractor. It cost me, you know, it just cost me time. I had to get off the tractor. I had to go and unwrap the damn thing. Several times I spent over an hour trying to get them to spin free. Didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and I ended up actually pulling those off, and I saw no difference between those two rows and the rows that actually had them on, that was just moving the grass out of the way slightly, ever so slightly. So that's what I've learned. The one thing that I would do to this machine to make it faster and do away with one operation, which is the vertical tillage machine, is I would mount a roller crimper to the front of that doesn't exert weight on, just rolls it, just enough weight from that thing to roll it out. And that's all that I would do. That's the only thing that I would put on there is a roller. And there is a roller system I can buy. We'll see how this year goes, if it's worth it to put it on 24 rows or put it on the 12-row corn planter. But with that being said, I'm done for the night. I'm gonna go home. My wife's cooking spaghetti and meat sauce, and life should be pretty good. I've been here since, I don't know, I've been under this corn planter all day, but we are 99% done. Well, 90% done, 10% more stuff to do, and we're good to go. So thanks for watching.